Time for a soccer down here 1v1. And for this one, we get to see if the celebration is still ongoing for a national champ and catch up with the co-owner Sonny Dalesandro for our friends at Tulsa Athletic, NPSL reigning champs. Are you still celebrating from August 5th all the way through here to New Year's, Sonny?
Well, my liver broke in about the middle of October, so I had to sort of shorten it and start focusing on maybe adding a second star next year. But no, it was a good run of celebrations for sure. It was pretty cool. The Tulsa World put the we did this really stupid thing called the world's shortest soccer parade, which was from my restaurant across the street to this little dive bar where the original iteration of the club, which was a men's league club, was founded. So I think we measured it off at like 87 feet. But the Tulsa World and a couple news channels came out and in photos of the year on the Christmas Eve edition of the newspaper, ours was the first picture was a bunch of guys in a trailer being pulled by a minivan led by a riding lawnmower 88 feet, which is just, I mean, you deal with owners at this level. It was very apropos.
Did you have each device in drive? Were they in all low gear? Was it ones and twos? Or did you sit there and smash the gas and do 88 feet as quickly as possible? How did this happen, sir?
So we dreamed it up like a couple years ago. We just thought it would be really funny to do. And to answer your question, it was a real slow roll. And the boys had a speaker back there, so they started jumping when we were afraid it was just going to break the suspension of the minivan. It was like if you were to draw up what like a minor league disaster celebration looks like, it did not disappoint.
But if it's a minor league disaster celebration, the last word in that is still celebration, right?
That's how we roll.
So obviously you sit there. That was in August. How
Yeah.
you mentioned your liver, so I guess how much time after your liver breaking have you started to focus on the 24 season? Because I know a lot of folks will sit there and go, oh, the 24 season, oh yeah, it's over there, but it's really not.
You know what's funny is I usually at the end of the season I'll take a couple of weeks and kind of decompress. So and I'm not alone in this. All clubs at this level really go so hard during the summer to try not to lose a ton of money. The volunteering is great, so there's usually like this 2 weeks of decompression where you recharge and you start to plot things out and budget and stuff like that. I think 2 days after we won it, I've been just ready for 24 to start already. I don't know what it is. I hope I don't crash in the middle of the season, but um, I mean I've never won it all before. We've been really really close, but man, you hear people talk about that feeling of when you win it all, and that is a very very real thing. And it's I'm an addict already, so and I've only done it the once, but um, some of our senior players are already asking the right questions, taking care of themselves, and yeah, we're excited. It's also in a way it's such a trap year too because the success we had in the Open Cup, and then you win it all. It's like I don't I don't know that you can do better. I mean, all you can do is really. Well, what do you say? We're going to beat an MLS team this year in the Open Cup, and or if they're even around, and then win the national championship. So I think our main focus, honestly, is just you know stay organized, continue to grow the club and the culture of the club, and then all you can really do goal wise is try and improve the quality of the product on the field. That doesn't guarantee results, doesn't guarantee trophies, but that just has to be the goal. So, um, you know, uh, we're not targeting a deep Open Cup run and another national championship. We're targeting can we put a better team on the field this year than we did last year. So it's the only way to put it. Remain driven and stay sane at the same time, I think.
Okay, I will ask the Open Cup question a little later on, but I
Yeah,
want
we can
to
get there.
I want to focus on 23. How hard was it?
Um, Extremely hard. There's always the ups and downs during the regular season, and then the playoffs come, and uh, it's going to be great. I'll skip to this just for a second, but we shot a documentary that started in 22 at the Jacksonville game when we won the regional championship, and we have everything captured. So we've written about 9 episodes, and we're backfilling with interviews and ride-alongs, and kind of, once we get all that done, then the story arc will sort of create itself. But to answer your question, a lot of it is just, it's like this duct tape gig, it's like plugging holes, and um, it's not this linear pathway to the trophy. I mean, the guy that scored the winning penalty kick in the national championship game, it kind of dropped out mid-season and was gone. He's one of our better players, and then we had some injuries. So I called him up and said, "Hey, listen, if you can just make training Thursday, you'll be on the bench in the national championship game." He comes in, he gets beat in the second overtime, and our goalkeeper makes an incredible save to send it to penalties. And he was the ninth penalty taker, and he slots it home. So, there is like this really duct tape element to what we do, who I'm sure many, many others at this level can speak to, where, you just got to fix as many problems as you can, as well as you can, and then hope for the best. And I tend to think that if I'm the one that's out there working as hard as everybody else, that people see that, and that becomes contagious. And if the players see me out there mowing the field and cleaning toilets and washing the jerseys and whatever, I think it creates that sense of there's no real place to hide here. Like, if the people at the top are doing work that others might say is beneath them, then we better not pull out of a 50-50 tackle, or, we better head that ball off the line at the end of the game. If it's a diving header that's needed to win the game, like, you better put it on the line. So I think we try and kind of put that blue collar culture out there. And we've been really fortunate that the players buy into that. And I credit a lot of our success just to that sort of belief system.
What did you learn about yourself as either owner, grass mower, whack-a-mole, daily whack-a-moler? What did you learn about yourself as a part of this whole dynamic last season?
Um, you know, I, I learned that I am. Um, Let me see how I can put this. Um, there's a thing about winning. You have to have an openness to it, and I think I learned that I deserve to win sometimes. It's like you get to these spots. We've been. I want to put this the right way. I think there's a magnetic property to winning, and I think that if you recognize that and you open yourself to it, then you're more apt to having good things come your way. I don't want to sound too uh, weird about this, but like, there's an energy to it. So I feel like I learned to really do the work, create the culture, but then at the same time, for me on a personal level, and within the club too, is it's like you have to have that openness to winning. Like, you have to feel that it's what you deserve. You can't be surprised by it. You have to expect it, I think, to a degree, without being arrogant. You have to expect that everything that you've done is deserving of the success that comes with that. So um, I kind of learned that this year. I hope that is something that stays with me. I think that's why I'm really ramped up to work, to try and figure out a way to work out a little harder in 24. But yeah, I think just kind of opening myself and availing myself to being successful is something that's probably transferable in almost every facet of life too. Not that I'm like a self-sabotager or anything like that, but I think we'll use the example of like a blackjack table. They say scared money doesn't make money or whatever. It's like, sometimes you got to be open to the idea that, like, no, we're on a run. Like, if it's a good hand, I'm gonna play the good hand, and there's gonna be expectations there. So um, yeah, I think that was something that I really sort of learned this year.
So are you naturally the kind of guy that would sit there at the table and go, okay, I've got a 15, I've got dealer's got a 6 showing. I'm at a 15. I'm going to, do things one way or the other. I'm going to hold this hand, or I'm going to go ahead and say, hit me. and try and chase a 5 card Charlie with low cards? I mean, how were you going into this season? Were you the kind of guy that would stand on 15 or 16 going into this year?
No, we're pretty aggressive. I mean, at the end of the day, what we do is entertainment, and I think that the on field philosophy has to be catered to that. We don't like to win 1-0. The further you go, obviously, the better the teams get, and you win however you can. But we like to get guys forward and attack. We have an incredibly good goalkeeper. Fans love watching him make saves, and I'm sure he would rather win like a relaxed, calm 2-0 every game. But sometimes the 5-1s are a little bit more entertaining for people. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know in terms of like I don't know how to take the blackjack scenario and cross it over, but I think we're pretty aggressive about how we approach things. I think that our desire would be for teams to try and adapt to what we're doing. We'll do our homework as to what they're going to try and do, what we can do to mitigate and limit their success. But at the same time, it's kind of like you want to go out there and be like, hey, make them deal with us too. You don't want to overthink it either. So, yeah, I think we're sort of a little bit of a full steam ahead when it comes to that. We've got a lot of belief in the personnel on the field, and we want them to have creative license while they're out there. We don't want them to fear. If you lose the ball, one of the most encouraging things I'll hear the technical staff say, like when one of our wide players, our creative players loses the ball, it's never really any criticism. It's like, don't worry about it. Like, take him on again, like go at him again, beat him again, whip a ball in the box. If you want to try something, then go ahead and try it, because when you give players that artistic license, I think it can help them develop and help build that confidence, and especially knowing that they have the ability to do it without pressure of being subbed and stuff like that. Yeah, I think it helps grow a young player, and on our end, you get a more creative outcome too, a more entertaining outcome. So, yeah, we're sort of a foot on the throttle type of club, I think.
Okay. Sonny Dalesandro, part of the brain trust at Tulsa Athletic, hanging out with us for a 1v1, looking back at a national championship. And what are you doing for an encore? Basically, is what we're looking at here.
All right.
When you have questions about
Yep.
yourself or operations or how to attack something, do you have folks on speed dial that you can sit there and call up and go, dude, I got a question. I'm trying to parse something through in my brain. And how deep is your speed dial in situations like that?
What a great question. That's a really good question. Yeah, I mean, I sat on the NPSL board with Sean Mann from Detroit City for a while, so like, inner workings of club stuff, I'll hit him up. There's a guy, Dan Hodeman from Minneapolis City, who's a good friend of mine. They run a great club up there. Peter Wilt was one of Dr. Kern and I's early mentors, with stuff like that. Um, Carl Moore, who owned the original Tulsa Roughnecks, he was kind enough to be honored at halftime of the national championship game, because they won the Soccer Bowl in 1983. So 40 years later, him and the captain of the field, who are both mentors of mine, Victor Moreland and Carl Moore, were both out there by my side. So, he can kind of give me that view from 10,000 feet, that when you're stuck in the day-to-day stuff, sometimes that perspective can kind of change the way that you're looking at things. Tactically, I was lucky enough to have a short professional career that yielded some good contacts. Freddie Juarez, who's the assistant coach for the Seattle Sounders, actually gave us some notes before we played Sporting Kansas City. He was like, "You guys aren't going to be able to do what we do against them, but here's what here's what they try and do." So he's helpful. Yeah, I've got a good support group. Friends and family. My girlfriend and partner of the last 10 years, she's really been wonderful. She knows when the game itself is stressing me out a little bit, and she's sometimes, with just a turn of phrase, can kind of make it fun again. So yeah, I've got a pretty good support group that I can go to for different things. It's a really neat question.
So when you're getting ready for 24, Do you still use speed dial going into a season, or is speed dial something that you reserve for being in season during the sprint?
No, I don't call upon it at any given time. It's just kind of like I'm very much I think I'm more of like an in the moment type of person. So, I'll be going through, I mean, part of my speed dial is like, hey, one of my mower blades is crooked. Like where do I need to take this to get this done? So like problems at this level, and I guess probably at all levels, but they just pop up on the reg. So a lot of it over the last 11 years, we've learned to sort of remedy on our own, but certain things pop up, and sometimes it's fun to share the problems too. I think a lot of the people that I call avail themselves to me in the way that they do because they probably enjoy being asked the questions. I've never taken the position that like this is my club. I've always wanted it to feel like it's the community's club, and you can have literally as much ownership of it as you want. I mean, you get to the game a little bit early and help set up corner flags or whatever, but yeah, I think that sometimes the people that I go to also enjoy the fact that I don't want to speak for them, but I think that they enjoy that I trust them and their input and their knowledge on the game.
8 new teams coming into the NPSL this year. What advice would you give a first year owner who is now going to be walking those same footsteps that you are there in Tulsa?
Um, God, the first year, you just have to cherish it. It's all new and it's all fun. They say you learn more from failure than from success. So I would say some good SWOT analysis after the first year so you can kind of see where you were nailing it and see where you can improve. Don't overspend in terms of your team. I would say probably we all have those ambitions of like we want four guys to be drafted into the MLS draft and to go play overseas. But I would sort of say that the better locker room culture you can build is on the competitive side is going to go further than, getting a guy from Wake Forest, two guys from Clemson. And yeah, if you got a local JUCO and there's some guys that get along, I mean, the better the culture is with on the playing side, I think the more the guys will go to war for each other and what is inevitably a really short term season that we play. So have faith in all. Like a lot of players are really talented. If just because they're not from the ACC or they're from a JUCO or a good NAI doesn't mean they can't roll out there and ball for 90 minutes. So yeah, value culture over talent on paper. And it took me a few years to learn this, but at the end of the day, like not a lot of people remember what the score was in 2018 when we played Little Rock Rangers. But what you have at your disposal inevitably is a mechanism to make your community better. So, if you're able to recognize that and leverage it within your community, you can get in the public school system. You can create programs for kids after school. People get excited about this game. So understand that and learn how to make your community a better place because of it. And then at the end of the day, when that 2018 result is forgotten, you'll have laid the groundwork for people to be better people in your community. And that's what's really beautiful about what we do.
For someone who's never been there, how would you describe what soccer means to Tulsa and the Tulsa community?
That's another really good question. Tulsa has a really, really rich soccer history. I mean, when the NASL was going hard, they were looking at all these glamorous markets and where do we go? And, some really bold, innovative businessmen convinced the NASL to take a chance and move the Hawaii franchise from there to Tulsa. And with that, I think it was a wise decision on the league front because some of these markets that weren't getting these massive attendances, we were here in Tulsa. When the New York Cosmos came to Tulsa, you'd see 40,000 people at Skelly Stadium. I was 2 or 3 years old in the Dr. Pepper patch, and those memories are everlasting and still live on in the community today. So, the birth of the professional game here laid these really rich roots, and a lot of those players stayed here and started youth clubs. and had connections so that if a player was successful or doing well, Tulsa wasn't the last stop. I was a good example of that. I wasn't a tremendous player, but because of what I was able to do, my coaches were able to point me in the direction of what ended up to be a short little professional career. So yeah, the groundwork that they laid was really, really important. And we've got two Division I men's and women's teams here in University of Tulsa, and then Oral Roberts, who we work very closely with. Um, very strong youth club. It's just one of those things. I think we surprise a lot of people. Like you'll see Tulsa teams go down to Dallas for big tournaments and get results. People, what's going on in Tulsa? And yeah, it's just a really, really rich history. And then obviously you have FC Tulsa here, the professional side, and they've been really impactful in working with the community as well. So yeah, I would say the future's bright. Yeah, things are looking good, but it's all stems from sort of some bold decisions made in the mid to late 70s that brought the game here initially.
So what's the next thing on the list getting ready for 24 that you think you can cross off wherever that to-do list is off camera as you and I are talking to each other
Yeah.
electronically? What's the next thing you think you can cross off your list to get you ready for 24?
Well, obviously securing a few players. We had our forward this year blew up in college. I think he was the leading scorer in Division I. So we'd like to get him sort of done, committed for here. Our venue is a big thing. We've kind of gone round and round with the league on that a little bit, and um, you know that's another thing. And I touched on it earlier. Our community reached out and asked us to go play at this sort of underutilized park that was fenced in. It's got an 8-foot fence around. It was an old baseball field, and we sort of repurposed everything there. We saw down the old backstop and made a top rail along around the field, like you see in lower division English stadiums, and moved our shipping containers over to the other side of it, and built a press box there. And we would like just to kind of, I think ultimately we would like to be a template for other small clubs around the country to reach out to and say, hey, I don't have a massive budget, but how did you do that? Like, can you give me some pointers in how to do what you're doing and create and replicate that culture? So that all starts with the league being able to us have some productive conversations, and them, I think, maybe sharing our vision and seeing that what we do is a really good thing. I mean, if the Federation and USL both went there and said that they approve it and it looks good, then I think it's only fair that we ask our league to get on the same board, or on the same page. So if we could get our venue locked down, I think that would be a huge thing off of our plate. We don't like to ask our fans to drive 35 miles out to Claremore, though they were very kind to have us this last year. We'd like to, for Tulsa Athletic, we'd like to, I think, probably play in Tulsa in an area where the crime rate's gone down, and there's some more programming, and the park is more active since we've been there than before we were there. So that would be a huge thing to get off of our plate and help us move forward for 24.
All right. And speaking of 24, obviously you had a run in the tournament last year, and the decisions have been made so far where
Yeah.
Major League Soccer is in a back and forth with U.S. Soccer about wanting to have their next pro teams in, all this kind of stuff. From your perspective, as an owner, an administrator, and someone who has been in the tournament, what's your point of view on the current discussions involving U.S. Soccer and Major League Soccer and their involvement in the tournament that you've been in?
Yeah. I think from the Major League Soccer side, it was a real statement, because I think you and I both recognize that it was unnecessary, right? MLS could have sent the players that they wanted to represent their MLS teams, but they went out of their way to say, we're not going to do that. The cup is essentially below our league, was the way I received that message. I mean, the FA Cup in the first, in rounds 3 and 4, Arsenal and Liverpool will have their 18-year-olds, a couple reserves, and maybe a starter or two that's looking to get some minutes to get sharp. But MLS would be more than capable of doing that exact same thing. So for them to say we're not going to send our first teams, that's how I received that messaging. the way the Fed responded, was something I was actually pretty proud of the way they handled that. I think it's too often that in the soccer culture in the United States, I feel like the billionaires are protected and the guy that makes spaghetti for a living, is left exposed. And I think that that's a little bit like probably fear driven, or I mean, like it's not even on Garber. I mean, I feel like Garber is a little bit more just a kind of a mouthpiece for all of the owners. But um, I and maybe I'm an idealist about this, but I would like to think in my heart of hearts we could reach a point at where we could legitimately be about the game of soccer, and creating an ecosystem wherein there is benefit to everyone who is taking part. And that's why I think the reaction from the federation was spot on, because it's just like, hey, like this is an important domestic tournament. Your sanctioning is contingent on you playing in these competitions, and they should want to. I can't imagine a scenario where Manchester United says, we're just not going to play in the FA Cup this year. Like it's an important thing in British football culture. So um, it's this rare little gem that we have where, I think that in a way it's probably been suppressed when some of the MLS people sat on that board, just because it was the only look that people got at, hey, what would happen if a second division team played a first division team in a competitive game? That's really, really an important question. Um, and now I think that them sort of running from it, or just, shying away from it, just does the whole competition a massive disservice.
And we will continue to monitor what's going on involving the conversations with Major League Soccer and U.S. Soccer and the Open Cup, because I don't think that we're anywhere close to any kind of a conclusion involving that. Sonny, as always, my friend, it's great to catch up with you. I felt compelled to catch up with the defending champ and see how things are as you're getting ready, the calendar turning from 23 to 24. And, we're going to keep an eye on the Heartland, and obviously the NPSL season will be here before we know it. Thanks, as always, for hanging out for a 1v1, my friend.
Happy holidays. Happy New Year. We'll see you guys. Thanks for having me on.